Welcome back to the law enforcement recruiting show, the police recruiting show, the first responder recruiting show. We got a branding problem. We're here to tell you all things recruiting in the first responder community. We're the only company out there that's doing it with law enforcement behind the scenes, and that gives us really a leg up. And once again, we've got Doug Larsen. He's the CEO of Safeguard Recruiting. You can find him at safeguardrecruiting.com. And Doug, just last week, you returned from an Oregon conference, lots of sheriffs there, lots of deputies there, lots of administrators there. Interesting conference. And there was one comment I know you're dying to talk about, and it's actually a comment that I hear a lot. And it's when you talk to these folks that are down in staffing, some of them, not all of them, but some of them will sort of blow you off and say, it's going to be okay. The pendulum is going to swing back. And one of you even said, there's a new administration in Washington, D.C., although I don't know how that has to do with a county in Oregon. But anyway, there's a new administration in Washington, D.C. It's all going to come back. The pendulum's swinging back. We're just waiting for it. And we could spend all day on this one because I hear this one a lot. I go crazy because my take is the pendulum is not going to swing back if the pendulum's broken. And there's lots of things broken in the recruiting world out there. But what's your thoughts on that?
I would agree with you, Travis. I wouldn't sit and wait for that pendulum to swing back about 20 or 30 years and hope that everything goes back that way. I just don't see it that way. I think departments need to adjust to the new way of contacting people, the new way of finding candidates, and that needs to turn into the new norm and the new expectations. Don't sit and wait and think that, hey, if I wait this out, it's going to come back and my department will just be magically fully staffed. Yeah. I mean, we definitely got some changes to make.
Well, let's talk about that pendulum, because I know the pendulum he's talking about. It's the pendulum that was going on when you and I entered law enforcement almost 30 years ago, which is you didn't have to recruit. People just showed up to be a police officer or deputy or whatever. I mean, we had often departments would have what they called recruiters, but they weren't really recruiters, Doug. My department had people that did background checks, but they called them recruiters, right? Because they had so many applicants that just happened. That's the pendulum he's talking about, but that's never going to happen again. Let me repeat that. That's never going to happen again. That's not happening in any industry again. And there's reasons for that. I'll give you the first reason, Doug. I'll let you follow up with that because the first reason is easier. The first reason is generational. The generation today, call them 20-somethings, call them Generation Z, Y, X, whatever. That's just not how it goes. Like people don't get out of high school, get out of college, and decide on their one career they're going to do for the rest of their life. That's what I did. That's what you did. And we did it for over 30 years. That's not how it goes. I mean, they just there's a different mindset. That's not a bad thing, but it's a different mindset. So when you don't deal with that mindset, you have to adjust how you attract those folks. And that's what I think is what we're missing here is we're using old tactics, which are basically no tactics. We think they're just going to show up because they want to do it. And we're applying them to a generation that no longer exists. We're retired now. We're not trying to go into law enforcement. And so, but we still think that's going to work. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Back, the older generations picked a career, stayed with a job their entire career. We don't see that really anymore. And to be honest with you, the loyalty's gone on both sides. And not only between the employee being able to want to jump ship and go, but on the employer side too. It's not always hey, you've got a career here. We even heard about it last week, hiring freezes. We got to let some people go. And so the loyalty is not there that we saw 30, 50 years ago. And the way we deal with people and communicate's different. I mean, back then you didn't have cell phones, you didn't have the computers, you didn't have the rapid communications, you didn't have those expectations. Now you got generations of people that are more interested in going 3 to 5 years and trying something and then moving on. And we're seeing that a lot. We're seeing a lot of cadets washing out in the academies. We're seeing them wash out in the first year, the 5 years, and they're thinking, man, I tried it. It was good. I can go make more money doing something else, or I get my weekends and my nights freed up. And so the loyalty is just not there. It's not the same on both sides, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a whole other talking point about retention. But as far as getting them in the door, because of that, you need more people in the door, right? And they're not just going to show up. And so there's just small things you can do. You mentioned communication, Doug. Well, this is huge. The generation needs it's instant gratification. I mean, they can watch anything they want in about 3 seconds off their phone. They just type it in and they can watch it. They want instant grat. So you can't let them communicate to you and they're interested and then wait 1 day, 3 days, 2 weeks to even communicate back. You have to communicate quickly, Doug. And have you seen that with your clients when they start communicating at a much more rapid pace that it improves things?
Certainly has, and we've seen it as little as one email or phone call makes a big difference, and that really runs up the percentage of people that turn into an application. But the more times you can talk to somebody, more times you can communicate. And a lot of studies out there say, and we're finding it ourselves doing our own internal working with departments, is it takes 6, 8 communications with somebody to get them on board and get them comfortable, and it gets them a better understanding of how your department works, how the culture is, and it really gets them more so they're willing to be a part of it. They feel more of a part of your department the more you communicate in there, and you take the stress out of this law enforcement hiring process, because there's a lot to it. It's not just a job where you come in, you fill out an application, take an interview, and you're good to go. No, there's background checks, there's physical tests, there's written tests. There's a lot to it that stress people out. And sometimes when they're left to answer questions themselves in their own mind, they'll eliminate themselves and move on when there was no issue there. They're a viable candidate and they should have stuck around and been part of the process, but nobody was talking to them and communicating with them and answering their questions.
So if I was to take you through the stages of grief, the first stage is denial. Oh, the pendulum's going to swing back. Once we get them past that, I know you're heavy on education, Doug. There's no other organization group talking about recruiting as much as you. I'm always amazed that you almost give all this away as information is king. You've been articles and videos and doing podcasts for years now on this issue. And so this is the place to come. Hopefully, if you're here, you find it, and you stay in tune with us. You can go to our website, safeguardrecruiting.com, and just hit the blog or hit the show. You'll see all these. And if they watch them all, read it all, they're going to really get a master's degree in this stuff. But once they get past the fact that, okay, this isn't just going to come back, the next important step is to make the right decision, because there's lots of potential for bad decisions out there. How do you recruit? If I've finally realized I need to actually change the philosophy on recruiting and actually recruit, there's a big stumbling block on how to do that. What would you tell them if they come to that stage?
First thing I would want to do is dial in my process from beginning to end, how we take the application, how we treat everybody, the timeline to get somebody on board. And then I would go out and start with an aggressive digital campaign to go out and find the right people. And from there, I would build all my supporting materials and all my brand awareness for my department to keep people engaged with me as we go along that process.
No, wait a minute, Doug. You didn't say build your brand, build a video, get some billboards, and you didn't say that. You said what'd you say first before all that?
Well, I'd make sure all my processes are right and in place first before I go out and I start attacking. And then, yeah, I wouldn't. Billboards and videos, just, you can do them. They're not going to be the most efficient use of your dollars. I think an aggressive digital campaign is, but
yeah,
there's no sense in running that.
I'm being, what do you call, facetious when I say that, because we've seen those mistakes made, right? We've seen departments spend millions of dollars on these things that don't work, right? Now so you use these, you do believe in the marketing elements, Doug. You do websites and videos. You don't do billboards because it's a colossal waste of money. You don't do television ads because it's a colossal waste of money. You don't do radio ads because, you can do them, but you try to talk your clients out of it because it's a colossal waste of money. But you do the video elements and the website elements, things like that. How do you put them in the process? Because they can help, but how will they actually work for recruiting? Because everybody needs to understand, if you haven't watched some of our previous videos here, that's a marketing element. They don't call it recruiting. It's a marketing element. So don't be fooled by these companies that say they're a recruiting company when that's what they're pitching you. That's a marketing element. So where does that marketing element go in your overall recruiting campaign?
Yeah, it's a little further down the line. Once we got somebody interested in our department, that's where we want to bring in all those pieces, not only to help them with how the process rolls and what's going to happen in the process, but then we integrate them into what our department culture is, what our specialty units are, what we stand for. And that's the pieces there that we want to bring it in later on to be more effective. If you lead with it, you're going to get some website hits. You're going to get some interest that is not in employment, just interest in your department. And that's not what we're after.
Good stuff. Doug Larsen, Safeguard Recruiting. Give him a call, folks. Free consultation. He'll talk to you all day if you'll let him. As you can see, he's a talkative guy. Thanks for being here, sir. We'll see you next time. And if you've been watching, you've been listening, thanks for doing that. It's time to step up our agencies. Safeguard Recruiting is the way to do it. This is your first stop to get that done. We'll see you next week.